would give my spleen.
There it is.
For a Michigan victory over Michigan State. Because I don't think I can live in a world where Michigan State and that atrocious Aiden Childs interception machine beats Michigan. I don't know that I've ever wanted to do a podcast less.
I can't wait.
Than I want to do this one today. We are the Rivalry Podcast. Jace, JP, Michigan, Ohio State, your garbage-free college football talk without all the tangents from River Radio Ministries and presented by Elevated Integrity Construction. Also proud to be part of the Varsity Network from Learfield. On social media at Rival Pod. A little bit more about that in a moment, why you may want to make sure that you are subscribed and following on social media this weekend. But first, we're going to break the ice with a little bit of a wheel route, something that Jack Tuttle could not hit even if it were wide open.
Did you have a good weekend?
No.
Mine was phenomenal.
I'll tell you what.
It was amazing.
The Lions getting the big road win over the Vikings made it a little bit better.
All of my other sports teams died.
How's Deshaun Watson's ACL or Achilles or whatever?
And his Achilles was like a slingshot.
Okay,
it's bad.
That's bad. Which coach is in the hottest seat? Well, let's just jump right to it, shall we?
Oh, let's go. I'm ready.
No, I don't.
Oh, yeah.
I actually, trust me, we will talk a ton about Sharon Moore and the hot seat there. I don't think his seat is probably the hottest right now. I mean, it's got to be Mike Norvell, right? It's got to be Mike Norvell at Florida State. I mean, this team is what, 1-6 now?
One game, and you were in the top 10.
Well,
top 10 to start the year.
1-6, and the win, I think it was like 14-9 over Cal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just,
who would have thought?
It's just it's a bad football. So Michigan fans, take a deep breath and go, okay.
Yeah.
Things are suddenly looking up a little bit, right?
I've seen a lot of people in our YouTube comments coming at us about ranked wins and how Michigan has a ranked win and Ohio State has none. And then this is a prime example. Florida State was ranked in the top 10 to start the season. USC was also, were they a top 10 when you guys played them?
I think they were 11, but I think they were close, in there.
And now look at both of those teams.
Yeah, I think, and I think that's maybe the other answer. I think Mike Norvell at Florida State, and it's got to be Lincoln Riley at USC.
Yeah. I don't think either of those are bad.
And again, I don't even know. I'm not even necessarily saying that Mike Norvell isn't a good coach or Lincoln Riley isn't a good coach. Mm-hmm. But we're talking about what are you producing in the on-field product? USC is 3-4. And they got to play my boys from Rutgers this weekend, 11 o'clock at night. If you're looking for something to do, we're not. Yeah, I'm looking to be asleep before Rutgers USC kicks off. But you know, somebody had mentioned with Lincoln and USC that this team is 4 plays away from being 7-0. Cool, you didn't do that. Mm-hmm. You lost a goal line stand to Michigan. You lost a goal line stand to Minnesota. You got beat in overtime by Penn State, and then whatever in the world that was against Maryland, right?
Oh, was it Minnesota?
Well, Maryland this past week, but Minnesota a couple weeks ago.
Another one.
So you've got 4 games that you could have won all of them, but you didn't. Mm-hmm. And football is a game of inches. Nothing is won. There are no moral victories in football. So, yeah, Mike Norvell and Lincoln Riley. Anybody else you'd add to the list?
Yeah, I mean, those are the obvious answers. I think it's also obvious at this point to talk about more. I don't think it's there yet. And we can talk about this more when we discuss the game from this past weekend. The other person I feel like it's an obvious. There. I think it's Ryan Day. And I think you might look at that and go, what are you talking about? They lost 1 game to the number 1 team in the nation by 1 point on the road. I still think that fire is still there. He's got a lot of pressure to win the game at the end of November and do something with it past that.
Especially when you will be massive favorites in that game.
100%. So I still think until he wins that game, it's going to be there. And I think if he loses it, the record doesn't matter. Yep. It's over. So I still think I would throw him in that mix, but Mike Norvell for sure.
And like we said last week as well, and I won't rehash it, you can go back and listen, but even if he beats Michigan, which at this stage, I mean, unless you're just being the most homer of homers, like Ohio State's likely to win that game. Even if you win that, if he doesn't take a $21 million roster and win the whole dang thing, he's still going to be on the hot seat. That's not going to solve the issue. So, yeah, interesting stuff there. Want to mention before we get into Ohio State here with Nebraska, if you are not subscribed on YouTube, go ahead and do that. If you're not following on social media, Instagram and Twitter, primarily what we use at Rival Pod. Number one, we've got, we're credentialed with Michigan and Ohio State. So we've got on the field and press box type access, live tweeting stuff at rivalpod.com, a chance to support the podcast, get yourself one of the shirts hanging behind JP right now, give a gift through Buy Me a Coffee, read the articles. There's a lot of stuff there. Here's why you might want to subscribe this weekend. is we're going to be doing just some weird,
maybe
amazing race type stuff.
Craziest days I think I'm ever going to go through.
So our man here is going to start the day at Ohio Stadium.
Well, let's go a little bit farther back. Because,
sure. Yeah.
Because
let's go way back, shall we?
I'm going to be a sicko, and I'm going to stay up at 11 o'clock on Friday night, and I'm going to watch the stupid Scarlet Knights play USC until 2 a.m.
Which to be clear, that's kind of your own problem.
It is.
That's your own
100%.
thing.
But I'm going to do it because I hate myself.
Okay.
So I'm going to stay up late. I'm going to watch that game, which means I'm not getting to bed until 2 o'clock early.
No, it'll be over by 12:30.
I'm still going to watch it. You don't give up on your team. I'm going to watch the whole thing and be mad. Then I'm going to get up roughly about 8 o'clock. I live about an hour away from Columbus. So I'm going to get up about 8 o'clock. I'm going to get to the shoe by about 9 for the noon kick.
Yep.
Get on the field, take some pictures, hang out. I'll be there till about 1 o'clock, 1:30.
Let's call it halftime.
Halftime at best. Then I'm leaving, driving all the way back to my house.
You're going to book it.
I will then meet Jace. Jason and I will then get in my car and make the trek all the way to Michigan so that we can be at the Michigan State game at 7:30 that night.
It is going to be wild.
And we're documenting the whole thing.
Yeah. So on Instagram and Twitter, primarily at Rival Pod, this is going to be, again, just amazing race type stuff where you're going to be in Ohio Stadium on the field, covering the game as much as you can until you can't anymore. Book it to your vehicle. We're going to go up north. We're going to meet at your place. We're going to finish the drive to Ann Arbor, get you into Michigan State. Like this, you have got to be the only photographer maybe ever who has covered a game at Ohio Stadium and Michigan Stadium in the same day.
I wonder if Guinness would get on that. Do I get like a record? Do you think that's a thing?
I don't.
I'm going to find out now because I absolutely want. Can you imagine? Can that be like my lower third in this video? Is JP Guinness World Record holder?
Guinness Book of World Record nominee.
Photos? You heard it here first.
So that's going to be a lot of fun. We'll have coverage of both games, and it's going to be a blast. So again, at Rival Pod, if you want to follow along with that, which I highly recommend. So let's talk about the first game that we're going to cover on Saturday, Ohio State and Nebraska. Buckeyes coming off a bye week. Nebraska just got absolutely shell-shocked against Indiana.
Which is, I have so many thoughts on Nebraska because early in the year we thought, okay, Nebraska is not going to be that good. They'll be average. Then it turned into Nebraska might be undefeated when they come into the shoe.
There was interest there because of the Dylan Raiola factor.
And he looked fine for a majority of the season. This past weekend, I mean, it was just atrocious.
56-7, something like that?
56-7. He threw 3 picks. His game against Rutgers wasn't impressive either, and that was a home game for them. He didn't look impressive there either.
They obviously got beat by Illinois at home in overtime.
And that was close, and he played well in that. But you look at this team, and I just don't know what to make of Nebraska because I still have a little bit inside of me that makes me think this is a better team than people are thinking that they are. But then I watch them play, and I go, no, they are actually worse than I think they are. I think Ohio State's 25.5-point favorites going into this weekend.
Recording this Monday morning before press conferences and all that.
And I'd like to think that having a bye week before game, not that you need a bye week to prep for Nebraska, but I would hope that coming off a loss to Oregon, it was a good time to have one, to regroup, to refocus. This is a game where I really, really need the defense to come out and represent the Silver Bullets. Yeah. I need some quarterback pressures. I need Jack Sawyer. I need JTT to get in the backfield and disrupt Raiola. Denzel Burke's got to have a comeback game
because this is what Nebraska is going to do, right? Whether they get behind or not, they are going to rely on their 5-star freshman quarterback because that's what they have.
And you can see the talent. Like it's not a
talent question. It's this is what you'd expect. And we'll talk about this, by the way, a little bit here with Michigan because there's a lot of conversation floating around Jaden Davis. Okay, another 4 or 5-star quarterback. I can't remember exactly where he ended up, but a similar type guy. This is what you're going to have when a 5-star freshman comes in and you throw him right into the thick of it. You're going to have some really high ups. You're going to have some really low downs,
Yeah. I think for me, the biggest thing here, I was watching this Indiana, Nebraska game because you and I actually picked it last week for our stupid genius and we looked stupid.
We almost have to retire that segment after that.
We've looked dumb many a times, that might be one of the dumbest.
More stupid than genius
way
this
more
year.
Stupid. They gave up 500 yards to this Indiana offense, over 200 on the ground. I'm going to go ahead and safely bet that Ohio State's got a lot more weapons than this Indiana offense.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm not saying the final score is going to be what it was to Indiana. I actually don't. I don't think it'll be that. My final score is 42-17.
Okay, it's still not good, though.
It's still not good, but it's not going to be some massive blowout like that. I mean, I guess that's a blowout, but
it's
you know what I'm saying, though.
Math is not my strong suit, but 42-17.
I saw a lot of tweets coming out this weekend saying Ohio State needs to put up more than Indiana. They're not gonna
winning by 60 or something.
I just don't think you're going to.
Well, because also if you get up, you're going to pull guys out.
Yeah,
or whatever.
And seeing Nebraska give up 500 yards, 200 on the ground. If I'm Ohio State's offense and I'm Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, Jeremiah Smith, I am just drooling. I am ready for this game.
This is and I don't even know. There's an extent to which I don't know that I'd even call it a get right game, because I don't think that overall the team played poorly at least not on offense.
Yeah.
Defense was rough. So maybe it's a get right game for the defense. I think
it's a mentality thing.
And I think it's a chance for the offense to continue cooking, but I think it is maybe a get right game on the defensive side of the ball.
Overall mentality wise as a team, because next weekend you've got your biggest test outside of Oregon. You got to go on the road to Penn State.
Yeah.
And so this is a game.
And your season, and we talked about this last time, your season may hinge on that game.
Oh, it 100% does.
And again, there's question about will they make the playoff? There's a lot of other factors that come into that, but there's no doubt that if they lose, and again, I'm not trying to look ahead here for you or with you, but losing the Penn State game basically locks you out of the Big Ten championship, and then all bets are off for postseason.
Well, and you look at even just the future of the Big Ten championship game.
Absolutely.
And you look at the roster or the schedules remaining. So right now you got an Indiana team that's undefeated.
Yep.
They got nothing. Their remaining games, Michigan, Ohio State, Purdue, Washington, Michigan State. The only game that I feel confident Indiana might lose in that is potentially Washington and Ohio State.
Yeah.
I think right now they're going to beat Michigan. I think they're going to beat Purdue, and I think they're going to beat Michigan State.
So here's the interesting, and again, I'm trying, I don't want to go too far off of Nebraska, but I'll mention this as far as Indiana goes as well. Is Curtis Rourke is going to be out for an indefinite amount of time. Now they have said he will be back this season. So here's what that tells me. He will not be available this weekend, which I believe is the Washington game. Yep. Am I right? So they will not have Curtis Rourke for Washington. That's a big loss.
Massive.
That guy, playing so whether you believe in Indiana as a legitimate contender or not, this is a top 15 team that's undefeated with a quarterback who is in the Heisman conversation. He's not going to win it, but he is in the conversation.
They have mentioned his name alongside of it.
And so that has to be a factor taken in. Will he be back for the November 9th Michigan game? I think that's strongly up in the air. That's kind of a coin flip at this stage. Again, that just happened over the weekend. They're not putting a timetable. They just said he's back in 24. He's going to be fine. He will I would say he's almost certainly back by the time Ohio State gets him.
That's the second to last game of the season.
So that's to be considered too. But yeah, Nebraska is just in a tough spot. They have a win over Indiana on the road. That's a momentum boost for this team.
Even if it's a closer loss. But I mean, going out and getting smacked 56-7. I just think even if Ohio State's defense doesn't fully show up, which I do think it does, I just don't see the Nebraska defense being able to stop the offensive firepower that the Buckeyes have. So like I said, my final score 42-17. I think it'll be a little bit dull to start. And then I think once Ohio State gets the ball going, it's just going to be over.
There is, as much as Ohio State has struggled to, in far different ways than Michigan, but has struggled to put together complete games at times. This is one where I think you actually see a complete game from Ohio State. And obviously I don't want that, but I'm saying coming off a loss, coming off a bye week, given the opponent, I think Ohio State starts fast.
I hope. Your lips to God's ears.
40-10. I don't.
That is a weird score.
I don't think this is remotely close. I would not be surprised to see Ohio State up by 3 touchdowns in the early second quarter. I think it's quick. Nebraska's in a rough spot here. I think Ohio State, it's a good time for a bye week for them. Want to say a big thanks to our friends at Elevated Integrity Construction, because maybe you feel like Sharon Moore in Michigan.
I was waiting for it.
You know what you're doing isn't working and you desperately need to transfer in some help. Our friends at Elevated are the portal to a successful project. Aaron Carroll and his team, they've been doing this a long time. They communicate openly and honestly. You will be wowed at the finished project, unlike what happened in Champaign this weekend. Home, church, or business build, go with the folks with integrity in their name. ElevatedIntegrity.com. Aaron, we appreciate you. The Rivalry is also proud to be part of the Varsity Network this season, powered by Learfield, and a must-have for every college football fan. This is free to download in the App Store and Google Play Store. You can enjoy live college football games and podcasts just like The Rivalry. Search for your school to find tailored content, and be sure to search for the Rivalry podcast in the Varsity Network app. We mentioned it already, but we'll mention it again. Rivalpod.com. Chance to see the photo gallery dumps, especially that we're going to get this weekend.
Yeah.
Chance to read blog articles. I probably have about 1,000 words.
Did you already write yours for this week?
No, not yet, but I can tell you, I usually range somewhere
Is
in
it
the
just going to be bad in 150 font size?
Somewhere in the 600 to 800 word range. And I've got a feeling I might have 1,000 worder in this week. Rivalpod.com, read the articles, see the photos again, buy me a coffee, get yourself a t-shirt, support the podcast in that way. Because at least one team still has a shot at the postseason.
Yeah. And the pictures from those games go up same day. So, I mean, right when we're done on Saturday after that crazy day, all those pictures are going to go up live that night.
So thank you for your support in that way. And again, be sure to follow on social media at RivalPod. Especially as we do this little amazing race, Ohio State, Nebraska to Michigan
I'm already
State this
tired
weekend.
and it's not even happened.
I don't want to talk about Michigan.
Okay, I will.
Nope.
You can just turn your mic and let me just go
change of heart real quick. So here's I think the big question that's floating around Michigan right now, and I think it's a fair question. And this isn't coming from anybody inside Schembechler Hall. This is fan stuff. Okay. Mm-hmm. Is there or should there be a coaching search in Ann Arbor come December? Is the big question, and maybe I'm the only person asking it, but I think this is a fair thing.
I've seen
and
that.
Here's kind of how I'd start that conversation. Like I am real hesitant to change coaches, especially when you have a first year head coach. Mm-hmm. Okay. This is Sharon's first head coaching gig. There is no doubt that he stepped into a massive, he's got massive shoes to fill. Okay. Yeah. Whatever you want to think about Jim Harbaugh, the dude is a Hall of Famer. He's been successful in college, successful in the NFL. You're stepping in as your first head coaching gig, a blue blood program that's defending a national title, losing
lost 22 players,
a ton of talent. And yet there's a difference between, I said this last week, there's a difference between losing talent and just not having your team prepared. Mm-hmm. Michigan is coming out of a bye week after the loss to Washington. The loss to Washington was rough. You still saw moments where Michigan could have won that football game. Frankly, this last weekend, there were still moments as bad as Michigan played.
This past week, they held Illinois to 260 yards. If I would have told you they allowed only 80 yards passing, 260 yards total.
Michigan outgained and get this, outpassed.
Yeah.
Illinois.
Total had 200 something yards.
You cannot come out of a bye week and look completely flat like that. There's a talent drop off, and then there's failure to coach and failure to prepare your team. And that, I think, is the most untenable part of this entire season, is the lack of execution. I've said lack of effort. I don't even know if it's lack of effort, because I don't think there's anybody out there quitting on their team. But the lack of execution, the lack of preparedness. And so, as hesitant as I am to say, well, let's just move on from Sharon, because I don't think we know. I don't think we know if he's going to be a solid coach. He stepped into a rough situation, but what I can tell you is the lack of preparedness does not instill a lot of confidence. We also need to remember that Michigan did not have this full-on coaching search. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it was 2 days or something.
They went, and I genuinely, person to person, do not mean this as a disrespect to Sharon. They went with the closest person available and said, okay, this is the person that makes the most sense to step into the role. And there was no doubt.
In their defense, the games that he had coached last year,
he won them.
He was a phenomenal coach in.
He made
the right decisions. He coached well. I've said it before on the podcast. You can go back last year's game. I thought he outcoached Ryan Day that game. And I've said it numerous times.
And he did.
And so I would have had confidence going forward as well. And I would fall on both sides. I still think you should have done a genuine search just to do the due process of it. But I don't think, even if you would have come to me last year and said Sharon Moore is going to be the guy, I would have still thought, well, yeah, he went 3-0 in the games Harbaugh was out, and it was some of your toughest games at Penn State and Ohio State.
Say, beating Ohio State is a huge piece of that.
And the way he did it.
Yeah, and even the Penn State game, right? Like the Penn State game, obviously famous for the 32 runs in a row. One of the reasons that he did that, and you could look in hindsight and go, well, because he didn't know what to do. Couldn't do anything else. He saw that they were getting beat off the edge, and he said, "Fine, then we're just going to run the ball until you stop it." And Penn State couldn't. And the meme of him crying went around. And my favorite thing to do is to hark back to them and go, "You realize he won that game, right? You realize he won that game on the road, running the ball 32 times." So all that to say, it's hard for me to say, no, there shouldn't be a search here. I also get that is pretty unlikely, and I'm not even sure that that's necessarily a bad thing to go, this is the guy.
Yeah.
What has to happen, though, is there has to be a shakeup in the coordinators. Wink Martindale I actually thought Wink did an okay job this weekend.
I saw somebody, I think it was in our YouTube comments, call him Stink Fartindale, and it was just supreme. Will I be referring to him as that forever? Absolutely.
And I didn't think he called a bad game this weekend, but again, what he's done overall is just not
going to get it done.
Kirk Campbell, I've really liked Kirk Campbell, but Kirk is not getting it done right now. And there's the level of, is it talent? Is it coaching? And right now the answer is yes.
Yeah, I think it's both.
And so that's where I go, I think Michigan also, quite frankly, on the coaching thing, was in a position, was in a good position last year in one sense because they were coming off a national title. But also that means when you talk about transfer portal stuff, a lot of this had already happened. And again, you would trade whatever is going on this season for a national title. Hands down. There's no question about that. The whole point is to win the thing. But it did put them in a bit of a difficult situation with Harbaugh, kind of will he, won't he, with JJ, will he, won't he? And you can go back and talk about, well, they should have been prepped for XYZ. Sure. From a coaching perspective, that was the guy. Sharon was the natural guy to go get. I don't even know who was available at that point. You also are trying to keep guys, whether or not they would have, the Will Johnsons, the Kenneth Grants, the Mason. You're trying to keep guys from transferring out. You're trying to go.
They already have a relationship with them.
Stability, success. This is the guy. But you've got to see something different, because here's what is going to drive me nuts this week and already has, is Sharon. And again, what do you want him to do? But Sharon is going to do. We record this before his press conference on Mondays. He's going to do the self-reflection, and we've got to adjust, and it's on me, and look in the mirror. My guy, you're coming what do you want him to do? I get it. You're coming off a bye week after a loss. You should have done the self-reflection thing, the adjustment thing by now. You cannot come off a bye week and look like that.
So here's my question for you. Has there been any sort of flutterings around that team about a Jaden Davis?
Yeah.
Because I said it. Yeah. I think I said it maybe even the first episode of this season, where I said, if things really start going downhill, I'm throwing Jaden Davis in.
So here's where the Jaden Davis thing sits. And it's curious because, again, people say stuff and you don't know what's true and what's not. From a fan perspective, there's been a little bit of smoke around, did Jaden Davis's family say, we want him to sit this year, we want him to redshirt, we want him to just look, grow, observe, get better before he gets thrust in there? There's whisperings that is the case. No idea that any of that's foundation.
He
has
travel.
A foundation. No, but they usually take 3 guys.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's.
He wasn't going to play.
He wasn't going to play anyway. So I throw that out there just because that is whisperings. That means nothing. Like, that feels like message board material.
I mean, it's what we're doing right here.
But I'm going to toss that out because I don't know. I'm not in Schembeckler Hall every week.
As a fan, at this point in the year,
if it were up to me, let me put it that way.
That's what I'm asking. If it's up to you, you get to make the call.
If it's up to me, Jaden Davis starts on Saturday. I don't, because here's what you're doing at this point. At this point in the season, it's not, hey, I'm throwing the rest of the season out. But you look at what you've got coming down the pike and you say, if this is the guy for next year, which it is, if Jaden Davis is my 2025 starter, which he is, then I want as many live in-game reps as he possibly can.
Meaningful reps.
I want him, and I get what's coming up this weekend. I want him starting against Michigan State. I want him to face the number 1 team in the country. I want him to travel to Indiana. I want him in the game. Because here's the deal. Starting Davis, starting Alex, starting Jack, it's not going to change the outcome of those games.
And I think there's a bad misconception too with like people calling it, we're not throwing away the season. I think you can still have a reality where okay, this is the team we have. These are the guys that we have. They're not going to get the job done.
So why not? Why not give the kid a shot?
It's a difference between thinking you losing a handful more games automatically makes it a loss of a season, where it can still be a win of a season if you can get your future guy in there to get some meaningful reps, playing some meaningful games, not start him the last game of the season where you're already down at halftime and you go, well, he needs to play. Yeah. Going in and
forget starting him in the ReliaQuest.
Let him make the mistakes because he's gonna. Let him go in there and make the
because guess what?
Mistake.
The other guys are making them too. Yeah. Your 7th year senior is making the mistakes.
Yeah. Let him go in there, get some reps, make the mistakes and coach him. That's what he's there for.
I'm all aboard the Jaden Davis thing. Again, I've got nothing to I've got nothing to confirm or deny on the weird, message board type whisper stuff. Whatever. If he wants to sit this year, that's okay, fine. That's like, if that's where he feels like he's at, if the coaching staff says, we're telling you he's not ready. Okay. Like who am I to sit here and go,
but if the coaching staff is saying he's not ready, and I've seen what I've seen from the quarterbacks, but I guess there's a difference between saying he's not ready versus we don't want to have to go to him yet.
I think you throw him in there.
I'm on board with that too.
The reality is you're not going to see him. I really don't think you're going to see him.
No, I don't think so either, but you should.
Here's the, and again, it's always dangerous recording these before Sharon has his presser.
More will come out and say Jaden Davis is
and that's fine. I would love to see him. I don't think you're going to see him. Do you want to know what my gut says? My gut says I think you're going to see Alex Orji again.
Ooh, okay.
This is not unique to me. I've seen some other folks kind of stir this up because here's the reasoning. It's pretty simple. Alex Orji, he had the 1 pick against Minnesota, but Alex Orji doesn't turn the ball over.
No.
You go back to with Alex, we're gonna run the football. Because if the knock on Alex has been he's not passing the ball well. Davis Warren wasn't doing it. And as much as I've been dead wrong about Jack Tuttle. I thought Tuttle was going to come in and be that veteran presence, the game manager. He looks terrible.
He does.
He looks absolutely awful.
Some horrible throws.
Why? And again, there's a difference between my guys aren't open and my guys are open. I can't hit them. Mm-hmm. So why not let Alex come back in? If that's at least then he can run without fumbling the football.
When I marked down, I was watching this game.
So keep an eye on that. That's all.
I was watching this game this weekend, and you had already talked about it. Michigan had 3 turnovers. One of them didn't count because they ended up recovering it, but Tuttle had a handful of fumbles. He had an interception.
He had another bad interception that got called back on the hold.
Yeah, he had another one that was bad. Donovan Edwards had a fumble. They gave up 187 yards on the ground. I wrote down their first 4 drives. Punt, fumble, fumble. Second half possessions. 3 plays, -6 yards, punt. Blocked field goal. Interception. Turnover on downs, end of game.
It's awful. It's absolutely awful.
Thing there. You're never going to win a football game with an offense that goes out there and plays like that. It's just impossible.
I said this on Twitter. The score was vastly different because the final score of this one was like 52-7 or something.
Well, and it's the same thing as Washington, where you look at this offense and you go, if I were to tell you before the game, not telling you the final score, and I would have said Illinois only had 260 yards total offense. Tuttle threw for 200 yards. Not Alex Orji, Donovan Edwards and Khalil Mullings both had a decent game. Colston Loveland had 88.
I don't think Tuttle threw for 200 though. Was it like 180 or something?
No, it was like right on the dot 200.
Regardless, I would have looked at this and said, "Hey, Altmaier threw for 80 yards." Yeah, that defense was suffocating. Which, by the way, the defense played well. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. It's like the score was different. I think the score of this one was like 56-7 or something. But it reminded me watching the game kind of that when your team is just playing so poorly and you can feel yourself going, I've obviously care, but I kind of don't care anymore.
Yeah.
It reminded me of Michigan fans. See if this resonates with you. 2020 Wisconsin. I don't know if you remember that game or not. During the Wisconsin game during the COVID year, where Wisconsin came in, Joe Milton was playing quarterback. It was a night game.
Wow, that's a name.
And it was abysmal. Wisconsin just blew the brakes off them. It wasn't that, but the level of play from Michigan felt like that. Somebody else referenced the 2008 season where Michigan went 3-9. Obviously, the record is not that bad, at least not yet. We got 4th win. Cool. but the offensive output is really what people are referring to. The feel of the team feels like you came out of a bye week with absolutely zero juice. And that is just unacceptable to me.
Coming off of a bye week is what really makes it sting. It has to.
You can't do that.
Going out and putting up 7, even if you lose to Illinois, it doesn't feel good. Putting up 7 points against Illinois.
Because here's the thing. Here's what I learned about Illinois. Illinois is just a firmly average team.
Yeah, they are not special.
Michigan played a terrible football game, and Illinois still invited them to dance. Michigan still had a shot in this game. It made no sense.
So before we move on to this weekend's game, we're missing one of the most important discussions on this.
Okay.
Those Illinois uniforms.
Absolutely horrible. Took 2 years to
I'm going to be honest with you. Didn't hate them. I will admit, it did feel like I was watching a Notre Dame game.
This is more offensive than any pro Ohio State thing you've ever said.
Oh, listen up, buddy. It's there's a lot more where this came from. Up close, they don't look great. But from the TV, from watching it on the TV, it didn't look terrible.
If you squint really hard, they had a great personality.
I will say, the helmets were sick. I don't care what people say. I thought it was cool. Would I want them worn? Maybe not.
These were awful, my guy.
It reminded me very, very much of like what Rudy would have worn.
I don't care.
It looked like
no one cares.
A little respect for Rudy.
He was offsides.
He was okay. Somebody's not watched. You don't know ball. Rudy
clearly not, because I thought Jack Tuttle would be an improvement.
For sure. Yeah, you thought Michigan would be a decent team this year.
So here's where that leaves Michigan. You've got a Michigan State team coming in where, again, number one, I'll say this. Before the season started, Illinois and Indiana
You're about to pay for all those Michigan
Illinois
State
and Indiana
jokes.
were both
Mel
gimme
Tucker
games, and that is clearly not the case anymore. Michigan State game is now suddenly an interesting competitive football game.
We've made many jokes about Michigan State,
and we will continue to. And
we will, and I can because we've already surpassed that.
And so
week.
I desperately, Jesus, I've seen what you've done for other people. So let's talk for a second about my spleen.
Sure, that's a normal thing.
Because there's been this recurring bit for years now on Twitter at RivalPod, where when I can only offer it once a game, but where there's a critical drive for Michigan.
I don't know if you've stayed true to that.
I think more or less, where I think I've re-upped the offer
Many
at times.
spleens have been sacrificed over the years. I don't know how you keep growing.
When we're at a critical point in the game, I will offer up. I would trade my spleen for a Michigan touchdown drive here. And you know, sometimes I re-up the offer. Sometimes they take me up on it. Sometimes they don't. And yet always the spleen just magically reincarnates or whatever and regrows for the next week. I would give my spleen
there it is.
For a Michigan victory over Michigan State. Because I don't think I can live in a world where Michigan State and that atrocious Jadyn Childs interception machine beats Michigan.
Here's the thing, though. I'm looking at Michigan State, and we've cracked jokes on them all season long. Michigan State, 2 of their 3 losses are to Oregon and Ohio State, the number 1 and number 4 team in the nation.
Who was the third loss?
Boston College.
Okay. They also struggled with FAU at home.
Sure, but did they win?
I mean, technically, yes. Technically, yes, but also I think everyone who watched that game lost.
That's fair.
Here's the deal with Michigan State, and this is going to be similar analysis to what we saw against Ohio State. You can see the talent with Jadyn Childs, okay? Mobile quarterback.
And the future with him and Nick Marsh, both really. Childs, is he I think he's sophomore?
He's an underclassman for sure.
Yeah, I know he might have redshirted from Oregon State.
Nick Marsh is a darn good wide receiver. Jadyn Childs, I think, is actually a pretty good quarterback. Childs' problem is that he is so turnover prone. He will look like a world beater 1 second, mobile, putting the ball in the right spot, and then he'll just chuck up a Jack Tuttle pass every once in a while, and you go, what are we looking at? That's going to be real interesting. It's very much a Jekyll Hyde type thing with Jadyn Childs. It depends on which version of him shows up. And the problem for Michigan State has been both versions show up every single game. You just don't know what you're getting from drive to drive. But he can be dangerous. Marsh can be dangerous. One of the big things that I don't know at this stage for Michigan, which Sharon will probably cover in the press conference,
Will Johnson,
is the Will Johnson factor. Johnson's been working through something all year.
His second injury. Is it the same thing? I didn't see this.
I think it's different. I think this was like a lower leg, foot, ankle, something in his leg. So obviously I don't know his status for that. You might not know his status until the availability report. Even if he's available, how much does he actually play? That's a big deal because Jair Hill has been a little bit feast or famine. You can see the flashes that he's going to be really good, but Jair Hill has been a little bit feast or famine, and Amir Hall has just not been very good, quite frankly. Michigan got called for a number of holding penalties and defensive pass interference, which again, some of those were actually pretty smart, but it's smart because you got beat. That's going to be a big factor for this. The good news for Michigan is their defensive line continues to just be fantastic. The Derek Moores, the Josiah Stewarts, Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, those continue to just be really phenomenal players that are going to do very well at the next level. That's going to be a big edge for Michigan. The offense, I don't know what to tell you. I genuinely don't. Yeah. If I'm, again, pre-press conference, whatever, if I were a betting man, which I'm not, but if I were a betting man, I'd say you see Alex Orji start this game. I actually feel a lot better about that.
I would.
Because again, now you're the only man. I made the joke during the Illinois game. The only man that should be touching the ball for Michigan is Kalel Mullings. I'm talking wildcat formation.
Yeah, honestly,
everything. Snap the ball to him and you just go, young man.
I saw somebody.
Put 10 linemen on the field.
I don't know if
snap
you saw
to Kalel
this,
and go.
But somebody suggested moving Donovan Edwards to QB1.
Fine.
And
great.
letting him and Khalil be the backfield. Cause then you really could run the RPO, and they showed a pass. I forget what game exactly. It might've been the championship game where Donovan had a deep ball that he connected on. Was that his freshman year, against Iowa 21? Maybe. I don't honestly remember.
There was a halfback pass in the Big Ten championship game in 21 where McNamara tossed it to him and he hit Roman Wilson in stride deep. It was amazing.
And so people were suggesting something like that, which honestly,
you know what?
Why not?
Move Josiah Stewart to quarterback. I don't care at this point. But Michigan's got to run the ball. Yeah. I think Michigan, by the way, can run the ball on this Michigan State defense. But when you move away from that identity or you get behind the sticks, we've just seen what can happen. So here's kind of the three big things I'm going to go with. I think the defensive line can cause some chaos, but Aiden Childs and his mobility scares me because I just don't know. I just don't know. I think mistakes by Michigan State probably sink them in this game at the end of the day. I think I think bad Childs shows up enough that Michigan, because again, Michigan still has I'll put it this way, still has a very talented defense. The defense did everything against Illinois in their power to will this team into the game. Offense declined to show up. Special teams declined to show up. I think the defense does enough to probably get Michigan the win. And I am just begging Michigan, go back to the only good thing you've got going on right now and run the dang football. Give it to Kalel Mullings.
The blind side. Run the dang ball.
Give me Michigan in an ugly one. I don't even care.
Give me a score,
Michigan State.
Give me a score.
23-16.
We are so close on all of our stuff. I think
you absolutely, if you are Michigan, records be thrown out the window. You have two jobs as a Michigan football team. You beat Ohio State and you beat Michigan State.
And one of those sure ain't happening this year.
Which one?
You know exactly when. Both, if I'm being honest.
This is the second most important game on your schedule. The hatred is real. The rivalry has just boiled over in recent years. This is a must-win game. And if you don't win it, then Sharon, big hot seat moment.
Oh, if he loses this game.
No doubt.
Then, yeah.
Give me your score.
My final score, 24-20. Who do you think I took?
I think you took State.
I absolutely took State. I just don't trust. And I think I'm agreeing with you in the sense, I think it depends solely on who's QB1 for you guys. I think I lean maybe more in your favor if Orji is the starter. But if you guys toss out Tuttle again, I think Michigan State has enough offensive firepower, even with a Childs that is prone to mistakes.
Because he flashes
flashes enough, and I just don't trust that your offense would be able to keep up with it. Not that it's going to be anything high scoring. I mean, a 24-20 is nothing to write home about.
But it could look like the Illinois game.
But I think Childs is talented enough. Their running back is talented enough. Marsh is a talented enough receiver. They can cause some damage.
I don't think, and I'll be honest with you, I don't think that's a bad pick. And I wavered a little bit on whether I could take State in this game.
And that hurts. And I love that for you.
Because again, the defense, here's what I expect. I think the analysis here is, I think we're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Childs is not a good quarterback, but he has those moments
But
where you
he's
can
good
see
enough
it.
to still beat you if you don't show up, if you don't move the ball and give them enough chances.
And that's the key, right? The Michigan defense, I believe, is going to try to once again will this team into success.
And here,
it's what we saw against USC, it's what we saw against Illinois, but does the offense have anything to help counter that? Because if you just keep throwing the defense out there and just give Childs chance after chance after chance, a blind squirrel finds a nut, right?
Well, and here's the two biggest things for you guys going into this weekend is that it is a home game and that crowd is going to be ready. It's a rivalry. Yeah. That's the second thing. It's a rivalry.
The crowd is rightfully upset. They're agitated. This is, again, it's
all
hard to
110,000 people are going to be there.
If you're outside the state of Michigan, again, I get it, but like this is Oklahoma, OSU, right? This is Bedlam. This is Oregon State. This is the Civil War. This is the second biggest game on Michigan's schedule, and it's the biggest game on State's schedule.
Yep. And
these guys will be ready to go.
Michigan State has been watching this Michigan team, and I think at the start of the season, they probably thought we're not going to beat these guys, whatever. But now I think they're chomping at the bits.
There's absolutely belief in that locker room.
I think that's the worst possible thing you can give to a team looking to come in a rivalry game is that little bit of belief.
They just beat Iowa, and they're looking at and listen, you can tell me until you're blue in the face that, hey, Michigan's locked in, they're focused. I to an extent, I believe it because I think these are good players. These are players who, many of them last year, even if they weren't starting, they were on the mountaintop last year. They're locked in, but also I just watched a team come out of a bye week and just look completely lost that week from a coaching standpoint. And so
late into the year,
Michigan does not have momentum. Michigan State actually does because they're coming off a nice win.
Michigan's riding a 2-game losing streak.
So
Michigan State coming off a good victory. I mean, Iowa for them is a good victory.
I don't care about the bowl eligibility thing. Doesn't matter. You have 2 jobs at Michigan. Beat both states. Your first shot is this weekend. It's going to be ugly, and that's fine. You just I don't care what it looks like. Get the job done.
And we'll be there. Like we said, we're pushing it a lot. You can see all the action from that game. I'll be on the sidelines.
I'm going to have you get a picture of me doing the Paul Bunyan post
I'm going to get many pictures of some very sad Michigan fans. I'm hopeful.
Oh, goodness. All right. So I've got 23-16. You had 24-20 for State.
Yep.
Let's talk just real quick here as we wrap up. We have to. Rutgers to the Rose Bowl. This is a segment, if you're not familiar, where we track how likely it is Rutgers makes the Rose Bowl, which, as a reminder, is a major playoff game.
And it ain't going to happen. And honestly, now there's talks about Greg Schiano being out.
Well, you lost to UCLA at home.
Lost to UCLA at home, and a team that had not scored 20 points all season long, you gave up 35 plus 2.
A coach who started the Big Ten Media Days off saying, hey, you might not know a lot about us at UCLA, but we're in LA. So you lost to that guy.
Yep. It's not vibes are not high in Piscataway.
The dead-eyed stare of
Yep. You said it before that they put the scat in Piscataway.
They do put the scat in Piscataway.
They put the scat in Piscataway. It's not looking great. We play this Friday, 11 o'clock at night against USC on the road. That's gonna be an L. It's not gonna be good.
Can you imagine just for a second if USC loses another Big Ten game like this?
Honestly, going into the season,
I'm all in for Rutgers.
We were talking about Rutgers potentially winning 9 games this year. I am nervous they won't even be bowl eligible.
Hey, me too.
So them and Michigan can have a bowl watching party together. It'll be great.
Michigan, Rutgers in the Quick Lane Bowl. You heard it here first.
I'd go to that.
My gosh, I could not. I could not do that.
You and me. That would be another one.
Be one of those games where you scroll over on ESPN and you see what the ticket prices are. And it says tickets starting at $4. And you go, I'm going to pay more for a hot dog than for my actual ticket.
14. You underestimate the amount of hot dogs I would eat.
Before we do Stupid Genius, one other thing I have to mention about Michigan State, because I told this story last year and nobody believes me, but do you remember when I saw Coach Jonathan Smith in Columbus? Do you remember me telling this story?
But I forget where you said he was at.
So he was at like a nursing rehab facility.
Oh, okay.
In Columbus.
Well, whatever you're going to say is terrible now.
No, I'm telling you.
Are you sure it was him?
Podcast is part of the river, was doing some drop-offs sometime. Was it in the summer? It was after he was hired. So yeah, sometime spring or summer, we were doing some drop-offs for a friend who works there as a nurse. And we're doing some drop-offs, and I'm walking around. Like, there's a couple like guys walking around, and I notice one of them has like a Michigan State zip-up. And I go, oh, that's interesting. You don't see a lot of Michigan State fans in Columbus. That's unique. And then I notice there's like a few of these guys. We're talking to this friend, and I'm noticing like there's like 2, 3, maybe 4 of these guys, and they're all wearing the same thing. I'm going, that's kind of odd. And they walk past us as we're talking to this person in the hallway, and I'm going, that looks a lot like Jonathan Smith, the guy from Oregon State that Michigan State just hired. And again, I'm noticing like the Michigan State apparel, these guys are all together, and I'm kind of watching, they all get in to this same like big black Escalade. And I'm sitting there going, this is just bizarre. I could not tell you why they were there, but I Googled it because, again, he was a new hire at the time. I Googled him when I got back into the car. I'm going, that is absolutely Jonathan Smith at a nursing rehab facility in Columbus.
Amazing.
Why is he here? And I tried to find out, and I have no idea. And nobody believes me. And it's really frustrating. Nobody believes me. I know what I saw. I assume he was recruiting. I don't know why he'd be there.
The next. I already forgot his name, Stetson Bennett.
Yeah, there you go.
Maybe
Thank you.
Am I getting old? Is this old age? I'm already forgetting.
Stupid Genius upset picks of the week continues to be a half-point favorite for me. Pretty simple. Have to be at least a 5.5-point favorite.
Really excited.
You get the points of the spread if you get it right. We both took Nebraska last week. It was
we were
probably
not
our worst
right,
pick.
believe it or not.
Yeah.
Who do you got?
I don't know if this is stupid
I
or
hope
genius.
that you chose the same one as me, but I don't think you did.
I am taking Navy.
I almost did that.
I am taking Navy at 12.5.
Let's go.
Against Notre Dame.
I debated that for so
Roll
long.
out the TNT, anchors away. Everybody.
Wow.
It's I
don't even care about winning. I hope you're right. I love seeing Notre Dame in shambles.
I love Navy this year. I love Navy. I love Army.
Give me an undefeated because who is it? It's Navy, but then Army also has to play Notre Dame.
And it's like I'm pumped about this. I think Navy is one of the most underrated teams in college football right now. And I don't buy Notre Dame at Navy for this.
Yeah.
You don't think those cadets are going to be all accept? You don't think the midshipmen are going to be ready?
Yeah.
Sink their bones to Davy Jones, hooray! Give me the Navy.
Can you? I just want to say, outside of the game at the end of the year, give me. Lord Jesus, give me an undefeated Army versus Navy game.
Let's go, man.
That's Christmas. That is Christmas to me.
Our boys, by the way, at the Blue and Gold Report, shout out to them. Go follow them on Twitter. This has got to be one outside of the Army, and this has got to be one of the biggest games that they've ever covered. I'm so pumped. And anybody that could knock Notre Dame for good out of the playoffs. Oh. I mean, we're all in.
Honestly, we didn't talk about it at the beginning of the episode, but Freeman's on the hot seat for this year for me.
All right. I got that on myself. I'm stoked for that. That's a 3:30
I don't even
kick.
care if I lose. I hope that's right.
All right. What do you got?
Mine's maybe a little spicy.
Is it spicier than 12.5?
It's not spicier than 12.5, but you're going to think I'm an idiot. Washington over number 13, Indiana. 7-point dogs right now.
I don't like that one.
I love it.
Are you banking on Curtis Rourke? Like not playing for Indiana? Which obviously he's not going to.
And I'm just not sold on Indiana, to be honest. I'm looking at the games that I don't believe that they're as good as their record shows. Do I think that they are an improved Indiana team? Yes. Do I think that, am I threatened by them coming into Columbus at the end of the year? No.
Oh, please, Lord Jesus, let us pull that clip later. In Jesus' name, amen.
I also am a believer in Will Rogers. I think that offense has put up numbers all season long. And I just don't think Indiana has played a team with an offense like that.
I think it's going to be a blast of a football game. I'll tell you that.
I just don't.
Can we pull up your Hulu while we're driving? Not while you're not for the driver. Everyone chill. Not for the driver, but can the passenger pull up your Hulu account and watch that game? Because we're going to need to do.
Absolutely,
we're going to need to do something.
I do that anyways. Not watch it. I listen to the audio. I listen to the audio.
We'd never suggest doing that.
Yeah, definitely never.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I also think, by the way, right now you could also. I mean, you're kind of taking Michigan State as well. You're kind of double dipping here,
but
too.
They weren't 7. Well,
it's +7. So, and that's the other thing too for Michigan is it opened 9.5 Monday morning. It's already dropped to 7. And I think that line's going to just keep on shrinking. It doesn't matter. The betting line doesn't matter.
Give me a close game heartbreaker for those Wolverines. And I will be,
win
so
the dang
joyous.
Football game. Keep Paul home.
I'll have enough energy to drive all the way back home that night.
Subscribe wherever you're listening to your podcast right now, including the Varsity Network app. And be sure to follow @RivalPod on Twitter for this amazing race between Ohio Stadium and Michigan Stadium on Saturday.
I need a nap.
It's going to be a good one.
The Rivalry is a production of River Radio Ministries. Want live updates from the show? Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at RivalPod. To learn how to support the show, shop our merch, and read our blogs, visit rivalpod.com. Make sure to follow us wherever you're listening now. And if you like what you're hearing, tell a friend so they can listen too.